King Henry VIII presided over England from 1509 to 1547. He was there for the beginning of the English Renaissance and the Reformation. He was married in order to Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour, Anne of Cleves, Catherine Howard, and Catherine Parr. Henry was the second son of Henry VII, the first Tudor, and Elizabeth, daughter of Edward IV, a York king. His elder brother Arthur died in 1502, and Henry became heir to the throne. He ascended to the throne in 1509, and great things were expected of him. Soon after his ascension, Henry married Catherine of Aragon, his older brother's widow, where he gained military adventure dreams and hoped to be part of the rivalry between France and Spain. In 1512, he joined his father-in-law, Ferdinand II of Aragon, against France to save a threatening pope. In 1515, Wolsey was Archbishop of York, Lord Chancellor of England, and a Cardinal of the Church. But most importantly, he was Henry VIII's best friend. And the world thought that England was ruled by the Cardinal, but the king knew that he possessed perfect control at all times. Henry had hopes of the imperial crown, but they were quickly mooted when in 1519 the Emperor Maximilian I died, and set to succeed him his grandson Charles V, uniting the thrones of Spain, Burgundy, and Austria in an overwhelming complex of power. England then was showing increasing signs of discontent. Wolsey's efforts to remedy the grievances only exacerbated men of influence and brought no satisfaction at all. A parliament was called in 1523, where some taxes were levied. It caused such fierce resistance that Henry was forced to rescind them. It was at this time that the king entered into some extramarital affairs due to Catherine's inability to produce a male heir to the throne, leaving Henry with only the Princess Mary. He didn't relish the thought of a female succession or the political uncertainties that came with that. His rapid aversion to Catherine led him to Anne Boleyn, 20 years old, his match in every way. She was raised in courtly intrigue. She refused to be the king's mistress, and what would come to be a 6-year joint venture would inadvertently bring about their destiny while provoking a revolution. In 1527, Henry pursued what became known the king's great matter, his divorce from Catherine to marry Anne. With his characteristic readiness to convert his own desires into the laws of God, Henry assured himself that he was living in mortal sin with Catherine and appealed to Pope Clement for a divorce. Pope Clement was being held by Charles V, who was Catherine of Aragon's nephew, and so he refused, which brought about a dilemma. And Cardinal Campeggio was blocking the trial at home, so Wolsey couldn't bring the divorce about. Everybody knew what the king wanted, but not how to get it. This caused Wolsey's fall. And then the chancellorship went to Thomas More, who told Henry that he didn't approve of his divorce and would rather devote himself to the Lutheran heresy. Confusion was the keynote of policy for some 3 years after this, while Henry dithered back and forth between having Rome give him his annulment or just breaking outright. There finally was the outright break when Thomas Cromwell in April of 1532 broke with the church from Rome, establishing the Church of England, making it effectively a spiritual department of state under the king. In January of 33, he did finally marry Anne Boleyn, and in that September they had Elizabeth. This apparent break from the Pope was a little personal embarrassment to Henry, who had written Assertio Septem Sacramentorium Adversus Martium Lutherum, attacking Luther, being named Defender of the Faith by the Pope, now seen as a Protestant reformer, which was good news for Cromwell and Anne Boleyn, but Henry, who despised Luther, would forever keep most of his Roman beliefs without ever bowing to Protestantism as a whole for the Church of England. Henry then went on a series of marital escapades where he appeared both a laughingstock and a monster So when he tired of Anne in 1536, she was executed for adultery. He married Jane Seymour. She gave him his son Edward VI, but dies 12 days later in childbirth. The next bride was Anne of Cleves, a pawn in Cromwell's European alliance. Henry hated her at first sight, wanted a quick divorce, and that fiasco cost Cromwell his head. Henry married the 20-year-old Catherine Howard, who continued being promiscuous after being queen, cost her her head, and after that really broke him, made a sad, bitter old man, and he married Catherine Parr. He regretted killing Cromwell after that and became a grumpy old man until 1546, when everyone could see that it was clear he was not long for this world and would probably die soon, which he did in January 28th of 1547. He had not made arrangements for his royal son to take his throne, so everyone was bewildered, everything was confusing, till the very last. He had a succession of brilliant ministers. He knew some of the best early humanists, married 6 times, and managed to kill most of those people. He was formidable in appearance, fearsome of temper, and yet he attracted a genuine devotion, and he had a charm. He was monstrously egotistical, but nevertheless he was reasonable and he grasped the possible, forever taking false steps in politics and emerging essentially unbeaten and superficially successful in nearly everything he attempted to do. Henry VIII has always been seen as the very embodiment of true monarchy.